everybody. Glad you could join us here today for a program given by Tim Loff, who is going to speak about elder law. He's an elder law attorney in the area and has given programs here numerous times, but it's been a few years. So Tim is going to update us on everything that's changed in the recent years. So please join me in a warm welcome for Tim Loff.
Thank you. Well, I'm not going to update you on everything because that would be a lot, but I'm going to update you on the major things that we can talk about in an hour. How about that? Okay, so as she said, I'm an elder law attorney. Been doing it for a long time. What that means is that basically I specialize in law that relates to people who are older and their families. And that's pretty much what I do. I don't do real estate unless it's related to something that I work on. I don't do personal injury work. I don't do anything like criminal law or anything like that. I strictly leave my work to elder law, and there's plenty of that kind of work and plenty of stuff to keep me busy, so I don't have to worry about that too much. If you're looking for an elder law attorney, I do strongly suggest you look for somebody that specializes in this field. There are estate planning attorneys out there who dabble. There are real estate attorneys who dabble. You shouldn't be with somebody that dabbles because this is an area that's very complex and not easy to understand, and I have enough trouble keeping up with all of it myself just in elder law, so I don't want to try and do anything else. So it's important that you find somebody that knows exactly what they're doing. I put a resource at the top of your handout there about MassNALA. That's the Massachusetts chapter of elder law attorneys, of which I have been a director and I'm still a member, and I'm on the ethics committee and a bunch of other committees. It's a very important organization because it primarily is people who know what they're doing in elder law. So if you're looking for an elder law attorney either in Massachusetts or in another state, you can look at this website and put in your zip code or put in your information, and they will lead you to an elder law attorney and give you information about them. I'm certainly in this group and everything else, so it's an important resource for you to have. So I'm going to touch today on a lot of the things that have changed in the last couple of years that are kind of really important in the elder law area. Like I said, I can't hit everything because there's too many things changing, and they're changing as we speak. There are things that are happening as we know with the Trump administration and with everybody else that there's big changes that are happening all the time. So it's something that I've usually come back every year. I'll probably be coming back every 6 months the way things are going. Things are changing very rapidly. So both in the state of Massachusetts and as well in the federal area. But I can tell you what's going on right now and what the changes have been since we've been last got together or talked about this whole area. I'm going to start with Medicaid. For those of you that don't know about it, Medicaid is basically the program that allows people to get care either in their home or in a nursing home if they can't afford it for themselves. So Medicaid is basically a program that has both financial eligibility rules, income and assets, as well as eligibility in terms of medical issues that you might have. So not everybody can get on Medicaid. It is a situation where you have to be eligible for it. In Massachusetts, Medicaid is called Mass Health. Now that's kind of a misnomer because Mass Health covers a lot of different things. Mass Health is also a health insurance program for people that don't have a lot of money. It's a health insurance program for people that can't find health insurance anywhere else. So it is Mass Health covers a whole gamut of programs in Massachusetts, but primarily the one we're going to talk about, because the one that primarily affects you, would be Medicaid, both for the home and for Medicaid in a nursing home if, God forbid, you got to that point. One thing I want to point out right away that people don't recognize is that Medicaid will not pay for care in assisted living, nor will it pay for care in memory care. It's only either in the community or the nursing home. There's nothing in between. So it's important that you understand that Medicaid is a very limited program to those areas. Another thing I want to talk about briefly is that if you're looking for care at home, two things about the Medicaid program. Number one is even if you needed 24/7 care, they can't give it to you because there are not enough people available to do that want to do this kind of work. As you can imagine, the state doesn't pay the highest salaries to people to do this. So neither are you getting the best quality people, nor are you getting the hours that you may need if you're looking for this care. So honestly, it's a last-ditch effort. It's a last means if you have no other way of taking care of yourself. There are programs now in Massachusetts that are being sold. You know what long-term care insurance is. I'm sure all of you know what that is. Basically, that helps pay for your either home care or care in a nursing home or assisted living or a memory care unit. But it's a very expensive option. You have to have a lot of money to do it. And the older you are, the more expensive it is. So it's a difficult thing to get. But they are coming up with some alternatives. And one alternative that I recently found out about was that you can prepay for home care. So you can pay for home care at an hourly rate that's less than what you would pay if you went out and bought it, and it's good for a particular period of time, and you can buy as much or as little as you need. So there are options here in terms of private paying for things that don't necessarily mean you have to have long-term care insurance or you have to rely on Medicaid. There's things in the middle. So if you're in that position where you want to cover yourself, you should be looking at some kind of option of long-term care insurance or something like that. I don't sell it, just so you know. I'm not trying to sell anything, but it is an option because the state programs that are available are very limited. So if you really want to make sure that you have the funds that are necessary to do what you want to do when you get to the age where something happens to you and you need care, you got to look at early on, you got to look at some options in terms of trying to pay for it yourself or prepay for it yourself, because it's a really important option. But as long as we're talking about the options, we'll talk about community Medicaid. One of the first things to know about is the one big beautiful bill, which is called OB3, that basically was crafted by the Trump administration some time ago. This program is going to significantly limit Medicaid options for people. We anticipate we're going to be losing probably upwards of 200,000 people in Massachusetts that are going to lose their health insurance and or lose their Medicaid programs because of this bill. So it's something that's going to be run out over the next couple of years, but there's going to be a lot of changes and we don't know exactly what those changes are. But it's something where if you are thinking about the possibility of somebody in your care needing Medicaid, you possibly need Medicaid, you want to think about doing it earlier than later because things are going to get worse. They're not going to get better. So it is a situation where that's something that to be aware of the fact that things are going to get worse as we go along here. Community home care in Massachusetts is a mass health program. There's a couple of different programs. You may have heard of PACE and you may have heard of what we call the Frail Elder Waiver. These are programs that provide care in your home if you can't afford it and if you need it. So both financial eligibility issues and making sure that you have medical issues that need to be dealt with at home. There is an income limit for these programs. The income limit right now is $2,901 a month for everybody who's single. People that are married, it's approximately double that. So the idea is if you're looking for home care, if your income is more than that, unfortunately, we've got a bill that's pending in the legislature to try and change it, but at the moment, if you're over $2,901 per month, you're not going to be eligible. Your only way you're going to become eligible is going through a very difficult deductible program. So you can get it, but it's a very difficult deductible program to get it. The asset limit is $2,000. And that's a real strict limitation. So the idea being that at the beginning of the month you've got $2,000 in the bank, your Social Security or your pension comes in, you go up to $4,000 or $5,000, you pay that out for your expenses, and then you go back to $2,000 again. So as long as your assets stay at around $2,000, you're okay, because you're going to be eligible for the program. If your assets exceed the $2,000 a month, and by assets I mean everything. Okay, so about the only exclusion there is a home and a car. You can have a home, you can have a car, but you can't have a vacation home, you can't have money in the bank, you can't do anything else. You also can't give that money away in order to become eligible for the program. It used to be, and this is a new change because it's happened within the last year, it used to be that if you had $50,000 extra and you wanted to give it to your kids and your kids would hold it for you, pending your needing it so that you get down to that $2,000 limit, that worked. It doesn't work anymore because now what they're doing is they have what's called a 5-year look back. The 5-year look back also applies to nursing home Medicaid, Mass Health. That look back period means that you can't give any gifts away 5 years before needing either this program or the nursing home program. And I mean literally, you can't give money away. This is becoming much more stringent than it used to be. Used to be that they would kind of allow you to have minimum kinds of gifts being given away. They're not doing that anymore. Now they're really penalizing everything. And the way they penalize it is the average nursing home cost in Massachusetts right now is $450 a day. And that's what they determine as the average. Now I've seen nursing homes that cost as much as $700 a day. So it's an average. But the average, according to the state, is $450 a day. So if you give money away, what they're going to do is divide the amount of money that you've given away by $450 a day, and you're not going to be eligible for the program until that time period has passed or the money is given back. So they do penalize it, and they do penalize it stringently. So there's no way to kind of get around that. So the idea being that they really want to limit it to people that have low income and people that have little assets. You're not going to be able to get on this program without one of those two things. If you're a married couple, you can have one of your married spouses can go on Mass Health, and there is a way to bring the assets down to the limits. For a couple, the community spouse, or the one that doesn't need the care we talk about, can have up to $157,120 plus the house plus a car. And that's their limit. If you had $300,000, technically you're not eligible. On the other hand, there is a way that you can use a very special annuity, and I don't sell those, but there's a very special annuity you can buy that allows you to turn that excess assets, the difference between the 157 and your 300,000, into a stream of income for you. And that stream of income will not count toward the income limits for Medicaid. So you already can understand this is a complex area, right? We're getting that? It's not an easy area to think about, and they do have these eligibility rules and these limits on income and limits on assets and everything else. So if you're in a position of needing it, or you have a loved one that's in a position of needing it, you should talk to another law attorney or someone that really understands this stuff, because it's just not easy stuff. Now obviously in the Wellesley area we have Springwell. Springwell has a lot of people that have understanding about this stuff. You can kind of rely on them somewhat. They do have people that are versed in this area. They also, I don't know if they have recently or not, but they used to have a Mass Health worker that would come once a month so that you could meet with somebody and actually talk to them about the program. So it is something you can think about. There are some differences with the programs. The PACE program, which is not yet in Wellesley, but the PACE program is a program of all-encompassing elder services. So they will provide you with a doctor, they'll provide you with a bunch of other things, and it's going to move into Wellesley, there's no question about it. It's moved to Newton, it's in a bunch of other areas, it just hasn't gotten here yet. I would say within the next year it'll be here. The Frail Elder Waiver Program is just a program that provides care in the home. So they'll provide somebody to take care of you a few hours a day to do whatever needs to be done in the home. So there's a difference between those programs. PACE is a much better program. Once it gets here, if you have it, it's a much better program. If you know of somebody in a PACE program area, they can get on PACE, and it's a better deal. Let's see. I think we talked about penalizing the transfers. One thing that they changed, and they changed this very recently, literally within the last 3 months, is that if you are otherwise eligible for the community Medicaid program, let's assume that the kids have been taking care of you for the last 3 months, and your income has been very low, you've had less than $2,000 in the bank. It used to be that you would apply for the program, it would probably take a month or two to actually get eligible, and that's when you'd start getting the care. And now what they've done is they've made it so it's 3 months retroactive eligibility. So if you had somebody taking care of you and you had some issues and you were down below the eligibility rules, they'll go back 3 months. So you can actually get care paid for that you have been paying for privately prior to the last 3 months. So that's a real change, and it's a good change for everybody. That's the community, again, I'm skimming, but that's the community Medicaid program. There's also the nursing home program, which is called long-term care. So it's Mass Health long-term care. The nursing home program basically has the same idea, except that basically you're in a nursing home. What happens is there are no income limits because your income goes to the nursing home to pay partly for your care. There is medical eligibility issues because you have to be medically eligible. And what will happen is the Springwell would send out somebody to assess you. A nurse would come out and assess you, make sure that you have the medical eligibility for it. And if you did, then you would be eligible medically. So financially, you basically can have no assets. Well, you can have up to $2,000, I should say no. You can have up to $2,000 in assets. You can also have a home. If you can mark in the application, I intend to return home, meaning that you really want to go home, which most people who go into a nursing home kind of want to go home. So you're allowed to have a house. If you're a single person, that house will be subject to a lien, so that basically when you die, if that house goes through probate, which it probably would, because they don't allow you to put these houses in trusts or do anything like that unless you do it 5 years in advance. If you basically are in a position where you put that house in your name, you probate it, the house goes to the kids are going to have to pay whatever Medicaid has paid out for the time that you were in the nursing home. And they put a lien against the house to make sure they get that repaid. Now that sounds terrible, but it's actually not as bad as it sounds. Because the way it works is if you're privately paying for a nursing home, and let's say you're paying $16,000 a month, which is pretty average, $16,000 to $17,000, $18,000 a month, Medicaid is only paying the nursing home $7,200 a month. And it's called the Medicaid reimbursement rate. And they only pick up the difference between your income that goes to the nursing home and that $7,200. So if you had $5,000 of income, the lien against the house is only going to be $2,200, because basically that's the monthly amount that Medicaid would be paying that they're looking to get back from you at the time that you have a lien. Now, people are on Medicaid because of home care, the frail elder whatever we talked about, community Medicaid. They might have been on Medicaid because of health insurance. All those things, when you're over 55, Medicaid will seek to get back. So they're going to seek at the end of your life, if you have a probate estate, they're going to seek to get that back. So that is what we call estate recovery. We're going to talk about that in a minute. As far as the spousal situation goes, what we've been talking about to this point is single people. With spouses, basically, it's a situation where if your spouse needs a nursing home, again, you can keep the same amount of money if you're the community spouse, the one that's staying home. That amount of money is $157,120. You can also keep the house. You can also keep a car. That's it. Basically, you can't keep anything else. Every state is different about this. In some states, you can have an IRA. In some states, you can have a 401k. In Massachusetts, basically, a house, $157,120, and a car is pretty much all you're allowed to keep, and what's in the house is all you're allowed to keep. So Massachusetts is very strict that way. Yeah.
So what happens to the rest of it?
Well, your choice is either you spend it down on the nursing home care until you're down to that number, or you can use that special annuity I talked about, which is called an SPI. We call it SPIA. It's a single premium immediate annuity.
But in that case, do you have to have a beneficiary or a contingent beneficiary?
Yes, and the beneficiary of the annuity that you would buy to cover the excess assets above the $157,000 has to be the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in case you die first. So if you died before the person in the nursing home, then basically Mass Health wants to make sure that they get paid back for all the care that they've given. If you make it and you basically continue to live and your spouse that's in the nursing home dies before you do, then all that annuity money comes back to you and you're free and clear to keep it.
Okay.
Now, the annuity will pay out immediately upon the person going into the nursing home. And that annuity amount basically is not considered to be income coming back to the community spouse, and the community spouse could win the lottery the next day. and it doesn't matter, because basically they're considered to be a separate economic unit from the person that's in the nursing home. So when you apply for Medicaid for long-term care in a nursing home, you're applying as one economic unit. They don't care what bank accounts are in mom's name, they don't care what bank accounts are in dad's name. You're looked at as one economic unit. It all counts. After you get on Medicaid, you're two separate economic units. So basically, the person in the community, whether it's the husband or the wife, is allowed to basically have assets, get income, do what they need to do going forward. The only issue is if they die while there's an annuity in place, then Mass Health is going to get paid back using that annuity. But that annuity is the best way to basically use up those excess assets if you have them. And it really doesn't matter. I mean, I have a woman right now who's probably, her husband had to go into a nursing home because of Parkinson's, and she's got some serious illnesses herself. And we did annuities that basically came up to about $1.2 million, and $1,200,000, and she's still eligible. He's still eligible for Medicaid. So depending on the situation, these annuities can really do a wonderful job of protecting assets for the spouse going into the community. So I don't like to scare people thinking about, oh my God, if my husband goes in the nursing home, I'm screwed. It's really not that way at all. It is a situation where there are things you can do at the last minute. Now, we talked a little bit about the 5-year look back, and the 5-year look back that we talked about also applies to long-term care. So in the event that you're thinking, I want to somehow get money to my kids, because as you can tell, we can basically work with a spouse, right? It's not that hard to play games between spouses to make sure that the spouse in the community has the assets and the income that they need to continue. But we also think about, well, maybe you got some kids or grandkids that you would like to get some money to. You don't want all this money going to the nursing home or going to the state and ending up with the kids not having anything. The way to do that is to think about it 5 years in advance of needing a nursing home. Now, that's not an easy thing because we don't know whether we'll need a nursing home or when we're going to need a nursing home. But the idea is you got to think of it 5 years in advance and make some plans, because there are things that you can do. If you own a home, there are irrevocable trusts that can be created. There's also what's called a life estate, where you can put your house into a protective position 5 years in advance of needing a nursing home. An irrevocable trust can actually be used for vacation homes, or it can be used for cash. So there's a lot of different things that you can do 5 years in advance. And actually, over the last couple of years, my association, of which I'm a member, have won some serious litigation against Massachusetts, because Massachusetts used to try and attack these trusts and say they're not valid. And we've won enough times now that they've given up. So we do these trusts, as long as we do them right, and do them 5 years in advance, we can protect pretty much anything that you're willing to protect. Now the problem is, in order to protect that stuff, you got to give it away in the sense that you're giving up control over your asset. So as an example, we talk about a life estate. A life estate is a situation where you take your house and you put it into your kids' names. You deed the house to the kids, but you retain the right to live there the rest of your life in the deed. So basically, they can't kick you out. They can't do anything. You're there. You're the one responsible for taking care of the house, and you're the one that's also going to get any benefit from it. If the house is rented, you get the benefit from the house. Now, that's great, except that if you decided to sell it or mortgage it, the kids have to agree, because they are also owners of that house. So there's an upside and a downside. The upside is you're protecting the house. The downside is that you've lost some control. And the same thing with the irrevocable trust. You can't be the trustees and the beneficiaries and everything of a trust, because if you are, it's like you. And Medicaid says, hey, we're going to let you play these games, but these games mean that you have to be able to give up some control over these assets. If they're your assets and you've got control over them, we're going to consider them to be your assets. So that's the difference, okay? Let's see. Yeah, the 5-year look-back period. I hate to harp on that, but that is something that you got to be very careful of. You know, people don't realize, you know, oh, you know, my son needs $25,000 because he needs to start a job, or I want to give him some money to you know, get a house, or I want to give a big cash gift to my church. All those are gifts, and basically Medicaid will penalize you if you give gifts away. So 5 years in advance, and you know, we never know what 5 years means, right? We have a case involving a woman who was 85 years old, perfect health, and her son needed $25,000 to start a business. So she gave him the $25,000. 3 years later, she had a stroke. A year later, she had used up all of her assets because she didn't have that much, and the nursing home costs a lot of money. And so she applied for Medicaid, and they said no. And it went in front of a judge, and the judge said no. You should know, if you're 85 years old, that you might not have 5 years to get into a nursing home. And it's tough, but that's just what the rules are. So we can't play games in that area. Yeah.
Is the 5-year look back, does it have to be 100% funded? You can't establish it and, you know, deposit some funds and then add to it?
No, because every time you put funds into that trust, it's considered to be a gift. So if you fund it on day 1 and then you run 5 years, you're all set. Mm-hmm. But if you fund it and then fund it on day 12, it's going to start running from day 12. Mm-hmm. So there's no way to really play that game. Mm-hmm. But you can put anything you want into it. That's the great thing about it. I mean, you can put a vacation home in it. That's what I've got a lot of clients that have used it for vacation homes. They want the kids to be able to stay in the vacation home and continue to use it, whether it be a life estate or something like that. You can do that. About the only option, if you don't own real estate, would be an irrevocable trust. Now, you can give money away 5 years in advance. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, so as long as you've got the money and you want to give it away, that's okay. But you have to make sure you make the 5 years. So you know, sometimes what we do is we create what we call recipients trusts, and this is where you'd take some money and you'd put it into a trust for the kids, without your name's not on it anywhere. But the kids understand and agree that they're not going to do anything with the money until you need a nursing home or you die, and then they'll take the money. But basically, we're going to wait that 5 years, and that way, if you need the money and want it back within 5 years, the kids can give it back to you. So there's ways of playing that kind of game, but you've really given it away. I mean, you've written a check to the kids, and the kids have deposited the check in a bank account somewhere, and your name's not on it anywhere. So you can do that. And just so you know, in Massachusetts, there is no gift tax. Okay, so basically you can give money away in Massachusetts without worrying about a gift tax. A lot of people go, yeah, but I can't give more than $19,000 away. Well, that only applies if you've got more than $15 million, because that's the federal limit for gifts. It's not a Massachusetts limit, it's the federal limit. So if you have more than $15 million and you give away more than $19,000 per person per year, it's going to reduce your $15 million exemption by the amount of money that you give away. In Massachusetts, it doesn't matter. So we're going to talk about, in a little while, we'll talk about the estate tax in Massachusetts, how that's changed. But yes, sir. Ma'am, sorry.
If you have an estate and you're giving it to your children or grandchildren, can you put an age that they can't touch it until?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do that all the time. So people, and people decide differently. Some kids say, I want to have my kids have it at 21. Some say, I want to have it at, whatever. The only thing that's dangerous is when people give money to a grandchild and that grandchild is like 9 years old. That's a big problem, because children under the age of 18 in Massachusetts cannot own property. So if you're going to do money for a grandchild, that money should either be given to the parent, with the idea being the parent will give it to the grandchild, or you're going to give it basically in a situation where it's held until they're a certain age, whatever that age is. Yeah.
When you have an asset like a house, is it for the whole value of the house? Because the house changes in value.
Yeah, well, if you're a single person, there is a limit in terms of the amount of equity that you can have in your home. So if you're trying to apply for Medicaid and you have a home of worth more than $1,097,000 right now, they change it every year, but that's the number right now, then you would not be eligible for Medicaid until that equity was down below that number.
So you don't have to do an evaluation of your house at the time you do the trust, is it? Or the
No, if you're talking about the 5-year look, yeah, if you're talking about a 5-year look back,
that increases.
yeah, no, it doesn't matter. So that's one of the advantages of doing a trust like that, is the appreciation will go that way. If you're a married couple, the amount of the value of the house doesn't matter. So it could be a $10 million house, and if your spouse needs nursing home care, you get to keep the house no matter what the value is. But if you're single, there's a limitation of $1,097,000. So the other thing a lot of people don't think about, and it's important that you do recognize the fact that, okay, so your spouse goes into a nursing home, well, now where are you? Okay, so now maybe you need to think about 5-year look back and planning and things like that, you know. So don't just assume just because your spouse is in a nursing home you're all set. It's more like, okay, now if you're trying to get money to the kids or charities or whatever, you got to now think about, okay, now what's the next step and what are we going to do for me, even though I'm in the community. Yeah.
If you're in a nursing home and you could afford it, and you're in, let's say, a nicer nursing home,
Yeah.
and you're paying, and then all of a sudden you live longer than you think, and you run out of money, does Mass Health switch you to a different nursing home?
No, typically there are very few nursing homes in Massachusetts that are private pay only. Almost all nursing homes will accept Medicaid, and the number in Massachusetts is really ridiculous. I think we're in the 70 to 80% of people that are in nursing homes today are on Medicaid. Just because it's so damn expensive, you know. I mean, when you're talking $20,000, I think Newbridge on the Charles is up to $22,000 a month. I mean, it's huge, right? So, you know, when you're talking that kind of money, it doesn't take long to, you know, eliminate your assets. So almost all nursing homes, and this is not something, the only one I think I know of is there's one connected with Fox Hill. I can't remember the name of it, but there's one connected with Fox Hill, and I believe that is private pay only. They don't accept Medicaid. But most of these places will accept Medicaid. If you were in a place that was private pay only, then yeah, you'd have to move in order to get on Medicaid, because you'd have to go someplace that accepts Medicaid. Yeah.
I've known a situation where people will say, you know, I've got to get into wherever the spot is, and before I run out of money.
Right.
For one thing, and then the other thing is, so I imagine I'd like your comment on that. And secondly, would you please define nursing home?
What's that?
Would you please define nursing home, because I know there are different.
Yeah, sure.
Different.
Yeah. So let me start with the second one first. A nursing home is really there's obviously a definition in the statutes and whatever, but it's a skilled nursing facility. It's where you're getting skilled care, not just custodial care, not just being taken care of. You're really getting some kind of skilled nursing care. Now, memory care and assisted living, memory care is sort of you're getting memory assistance and perhaps in a locked unit, but you're really not getting medical care per se. You might be getting psychiatric care, but not what they consider to be medical care. And assisted living is basically, and this is a new change as well, assisted living is not supposed to be any medical care, but they just changed the law, and now they're allowing some assisted living to provide some limited nursing care, very limited amounts. But basically those are the 3 levels in Massachusetts. We still have a few, they're called retirement communities. There's a couple of those that are still out there, level 4 retirement communities.
Like that spot in Western.
Yeah, there's a few of those out there, but not very many of them left anymore, and they're closing pretty quickly. But that's about all there is just those 3 levels. As far as, you know, your first question, it's a hard one. Give me exactly what you're thinking.
I think I kind of forgot my question, which is embarrassing.
No, it's all right. No.
Let's see. We'll come back to that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what you were asking either, and I couldn't. Second one went first. Okay.
Oh, right, getting rid of your money before.
What's that?
Getting rid of it, but
Yeah.
spending down your money.
Yeah.
Thank you. My understanding is most places aren't eager to accept Medicaid
Correct.
people.
Right.
So you want to go in when you're on Medicaid, or,
Right. Well, we talked about the differential between the Medicaid reimbursement rate that is being paid to the nursing home versus what they get privately.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons they're so expensive is because they're only getting $7,200 a month from the state, right? So, in order to offset that limited amount of money that they're getting from the state, they're trying to hit people that have money harder. And that's exactly what they're doing. But the idea being that because of that, good nursing homes, and there's a big difference between good nursing homes and bad nursing homes. Good nursing homes basically want to get people in who have private pay at least for 3 to 6 months. That's sort of the number that we use. I work a lot with what are called Aging Life Care Associates. There's an organization called ALCA. You might want to write that down, ALCA. And these are what we used to call geriatric care managers, but they changed their names. So now they're not geriatric care managers anymore, they're Aging Life Care Associates. And they're social workers who are primarily involved in helping people either get into a nursing home, get into assisted living, figure out where they should be going, getting care at home if they need it, what kind of care do they need at home, what kind of help can they get. And they're wonderful. And I can't keep track of all the medical issues. I can't keep track of what's a good nursing home, what's a bad nursing home. But they can, and they do. And they can be very helpful in terms of trying to help you get into a nursing home. But what we use as sort of a benchmark, what I with them use as a sort of a benchmark, is you got to have 3 to 6 months of private pay at the rate of $20,000 a month in order to be able to get into a decent nursing home. So if you spend down to zero and you say, oh, well, I'm eligible for Medicaid, well, that's great, but you're going to be on a waiting list at a not very good nursing home for Medicaid. So it is a situation where I always recommend, even if you're thinking about trying to get rid of your assets for 5 years or whatever you're trying to do to get money to the kids, that you make sure that you at least keep a certain amount of money in the bank, so if God forbid you need a nursing home, you can get into one that's decent.
So this is beyond the 3 to 6 months you're talking
No,
about?
I'm just saying the 3 to 6 months, yeah. You gotta make sure you have at least that, so, yeah.
I lived in another state and took care of my mother.
Mhm.
This is quite a while ago, but I understood that in her case, she didn't have much except a small pension and Social Security, and she had to be the only way you could get into a nursing home is if you were ill in a hospital, and then the first 6 weeks are Medicaid, and then it's Medicare.
Yeah, the way it works is that basically, and I don't know about another state, but Massachusetts, the way it works is that there's 2 ways that you get into a nursing home. One is you get hospitalized,
Okay.
right? And during the course of the hospitalization, the medical providers say, you can't go home again, right? You're not in a position where your safety or your medical situation or your mental capacity or whatever it is not going to allow you to go home and take care of yourself. So you need to go into a nursing home. Now, typically, in that scenario, what they're going to do is they're going to discharge you to a nursing home, and hopefully you'll have a choice, or your kids or whoever's taking care of you.
Almost every nursing home has to have a bed available. They have to have beds that they will take if it's unoccupied. Right.
If it's unoccupied, yeah, but they don't have to have a bed. They may be full.
But they will.
Right.
They can take.
Right. So a hospital discharge person, right? So you get put in the hospital discharge person is going to look around and see if they can find a nursing home. Now you have, or the people that you're dealing with, or may not be capable of talking about the discharge process, but hopefully your kids or whoever is taking care of you would be, and they have the ability to actually talk to the discharge planners and say, hey, I want my person to go here. You know, I had a gentleman who was actually from Wellesley, and his wife unfortunately started suffering from Alzheimer's, and things went downhill pretty quickly. And he desperately wanted to get her into a particular nursing home. And he was an ex-Marine, and the discharge planner came back to him and said, well, they don't have any openings right now, so you have your choice between these 3. And he was like, no, she's going to go this one. And they were like, well, he said, no, she's going to go this one. And they had to basically wait for a couple of weeks until it was able, because he was not going to let her be discharged to a nursing home he didn't want her to be in. So you do have some control. It's just a situation of making sure that you have an advocate. And this is also where these geriatric care managers or these aging life care associates, if your family is not around or you can't, they're not going to stand up for you. These advocates can do that. They can definitely advocate for you and do that kind of thing. So that's the one way, is you get hospitalized, then what happens is you get discharged to a nursing home, they put you on Medicare because you're going to get some kind of therapy, whether it be physical therapy or some kind of therapy, that speech therapy, could be anything, right? And they're going to pay decently. They'll pay the nursing home a while, which is why the nursing home is willing to take them. They're going to pay a decent amount of money for a few weeks. And the average is about 15 days. It's not 6 weeks, it's 15 days. You're supposed to be able to get up to 100 days of Medicare coverage, but nobody gets that. Very, very, very seldom. Very, very seldom do people get 100 days. Just because, again, the federal government doesn't want to pay for it. And that's coming directly out of the federal government budget. It's not coming out of the state budget, right? So at some point, the people that are watching over this will say, okay, you're done with Medicare. You're not doing better. You're not taking care of, we're not improving. So you're out. And now your choice is either you're on private pay or you're on Medicaid, or you apply for Medicaid. So those are the two options, private pay or Medicaid. So that's one way that people go into a nursing home. The other way is people just are home and the family says it's time, or they have a stroke or something happens that they need to go into a nursing home. That's the second way. And there, you're probably not going to have any Medicare coverage to start with. It's probably going to be directly private pay or Medicaid. And that's when things get a little crazy. Now the good news is there's also a 3-month retroactive period for Medicaid. So God forbid somebody has a stroke and needs to go into a nursing home, even if they're not otherwise eligible on that day, you've got 3 months to file the application, and it goes back to the day that they're eligible, the day that they're down to $2,000, that they're medically eligible, and their income is going to the nursing home. So you've got 3 months of time there to play a little bit. Supposedly that's being cut down next year to 2 months. We don't know yet. We haven't seen anything in writing, but supposedly we're going to reduce that, and then ultimately they're saying 1 month. But again, these are rumors. We haven't seen anything for sure yet. But those are the two ways that people end up in a nursing home. Yeah.
I know a nurse who works in Newton in a nursing home, and she said once people's money runs out, they discharge them to other nursing homes, to lesser quality nursing homes.
That's not legal. If they're doing that, they can't do that. Basically, there can be no discrimination between a private pay person and a person on Medicaid. That's what the law says. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but that's what the law says. And that's true in terms of admission as well. When we talk about people being admitted to a nursing home and we say, well, this person's going to be on Medicaid from day one, the nursing home's going to say, well, we've got a 1-year waiting list. We'd be happy to put you on that waiting list. But if you talk to the nursing home and say, hey, this person's got 6 months of private pay, all of a sudden, they're going to find a bed. It's amazing. All of a sudden they find a bed. Now, that's not legal, right? Totally illegal, but they do it. And it's almost impossible to stop, because they're going to come up with some kind of excuse, as to why they can do it. But that's what they do. So, yeah.
You talk about the irrevocable trust.
Yep.
And you can't control it.
Yeah.
The irrevocable. So you get a trustee.
Yes.
What's what makes a trustee qualified for an irrevocable trust?
Well, basically when you talk about a trust, just so everybody understands, there's 3 entities involved. There's the grantor, the creator of the trust. That's the person that actually creates the trust, right? There's a trustee, and the trustee is the manager of the trust. So they manage whatever's in the trust. And then there's the beneficiary, which is the person that's entitled to whatever's in the trust. So there's 3 people. It could be the same person, right? But there's 3 different sort of roles in a trust. So the idea being, and every lawyer is going to differ on this, I don't like to name the beneficiaries who typically are you during your lifetime, because you're, under the law, you have to get the income from the trust. So if $100,000 was put into trust and it's getting income at the rate of 5%, you're supposed to get that 5% income every year. And that's what the law says this trust has to do. It has to be an income-only irrevocable trust, okay? So you get that income, that's fine. I don't like to have the trustee and the beneficiary be the same thing. I don't like to have you as the trustee. Now, there's a lot of lawyers out there, so that really doesn't matter. It's not that big a deal. And I can't point to something that Medicaid has done yet to say that's wrong. I just don't, it makes me nervous. So if I can do it, I just don't do it. I have the kids be the trustees, or a family friend be a trustee, or whatever. Trustee just means somebody that manages it, and so it's not really a big deal. It's just a way to do it.
So it can be a close relative.
Oh yeah, it could be a close relative, absolutely, for sure, for sure. So yeah.
I'm going to go back to this gentleman's question, just because I need some clarification there. If you go, say, into let's say you have long-term care,
Uh-huh.
and you go into a nursing home, and you think that you're not gonna live for 5 years, but you do. In the case that you run out of your long-term care benefits,
Long-term care insurance we're talking about. You talking about if you have long-term care insurance when you go in to cover?
long-term care,
Long-term care insurance.
Yeah, are you talking about long-term care insurance to pay that's helping pay for your care, or Medicaid?
no, regular private pay.
Private pay. Okay,
Yeah.
private pay. Okay, go ahead.
So I go into this nursing home with that,
Yeah.
and I run out of those benefits, because I may be signed up for 3 years.
Okay, so we're talking.
So
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
in my 4th year,
Yeah.
and he's saying, can they make you leave and go to a lesser nursing home because you're now on Medicaid?
It's not the same question. It's not legal.
It's
They're not supposed to be.
legal for them to do that.
Not legal for them to do that.
They
No.
have to let you stay?
Right. The only question is if they are and they don't accept Medicaid.
If they do not accept Medicaid?
Right. So if you're applying to a nursing home, you want to make sure, even if you've got private pay, you want to make sure that, God forbid, unless you got a lot of money, that you've got a nursing home that accepts Medicaid.
Uh-huh.
You might not be on Medicaid, but you want to make sure that if your money runs out and you manage to live long enough, that you can go on Medicaid if you have to. But they're not legally allowed to discharge you for that purpose. They can't really discharge people for anything, frankly. I mean, unless they just can't handle you for some reason because you're so violent and they can't drug you enough to whatever. But they really their ability to discharge people once you get into a nursing home is very limited in Massachusetts, at least.
Unless you die.
So, yeah, if you die, you get discharged. But other than that, yeah.
If you're in a nursing home under Medicaid, you have a hospitalization, and then you want to return to that nursing home, who pays the bill to save the room if the nursing home's for you?
Well, for Medicaid, there's a bed hold time period. I think it's 10 days.
10 days.
Huh? Yeah, I think it's 10 days that Medicaid has to pay for that bed to be held for you. After the 10 days, then if you get sent back to the same facility and you can't pay that bed hold amount, then basically they could stick you in a different bed. They still have to take you back, but they could stick you in a different
But
bed.
if they say to you, we don't have a bed for a Medicaid patient anymore, can they send you to another nursing home?
Under that circumstance, and they don't have any beds, they might be able to. Yeah. But that would, they'd have to prove that. So,
Okay, and let me just go back to the serviceman who was able to have his mother go to. or
His wife, yeah. Uh-huh.
Go to
Yeah.
the right nursing home.
Yep.
There was a period of time that they kept the wife in the hospital.
Yes.
Was that covered by insurance?
Medicare.
Did he have to,
No, Medicare paid for that.
they would pay for that?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
because essentially, she was discharged from
Right.
acute care.
Well, she wasn't discharged. She wasn't discharged from the hospital. but she was still in the hospital on
So
Medicare.
they didn't discharge her?
They couldn't.
Didn't say she was
No,
ready for discharge?
no, right. So there could be a battle there. They chose not to fight the battle with him. Because, because obviously if they had said, okay, we're discharging her anyway, there's a question about that because she was incompetent to sign her own papers. And so arguably, in order to discharge, somebody's got to sign agreeing that she can be discharged. And he wasn't going to sign those papers. So that put them in a difficult position because now their only choice was to try and get a guardianship or a conservatorship over her and have that person sign the discharge papers. So they're kind of stuck a little bit. The hospital's stuck a little bit. So
Well, I mean, that happens often,
yeah.
that you're
Yeah.
discharged.
Yeah.
And the family is left with, what am I gonna do now?
Right.
I don't want my mother to go to this.
Right.
nursing home.
Right.
I want her to go.
And so you got to fight them. That's the only answer. You really have to fight them because the discharge people in the hospital, their job is to discharge you, get you out of there because they don't want to have to pay for your care anymore, and they don't want Medicare to be down their throats saying that you've done something. So it's important that they be fought if in fact it's not something that you want to have happen. So that's why it's important to have good caregivers, or like I said, these aging care life associates can act in that role and advocate for you to make sure that you get into a decent nursing home. A lot of these advocates can also have relationships with nursing homes,
Yeah.
where they find somebody who's going to be private paying for 4 or 5 years, and they get that person to the nursing home, and the nursing home in sort of tit for tat says, okay, well, we've got somebody that's only got 3 months or only 1 month. They need to get in there, so they're able to get them in there too. So these people are really valuable in the situation where you need them. They charge by the hour. They're not as expensive as us lawyers, but they're really good. So it's important to find, and they're all over the place. I have a lot of different ones that I utilize. So it's really important that you find one. The ALCA website that I talked about, the ALCA, Aging Life Care Associates website, will do the same thing. If you're looking for an ALCA member, you'll find the information about them and everything else on that website. You can easily find somebody. But real important to do that. Yeah.
From a business standpoint, for the nursing or the facility,
Yep.
let's call it, how do they determine somehow internally what percentage of their rooms or suites or whatever are going to be eligible for Medicaid, or does it have to be 100%?
That's way beyond my level
Yeah.
of my job description.
Yeah,
So yeah, I don't know.
would you
Yeah.
guess?
Well, I don't really know. I don't know how that works. I mean, obviously, they want as many private pay patients as they can get.
Right.
But beyond that, whether they can. I mean, again, they're not supposed to discriminate. So.
I know you mentioned.
There's games being played, but I don't know how they do that. So I have no way to help that.
Yeah, I
A
didn't.
high percentage.
Yeah, probably.
All right,
Right.
that's fine.
I gave you a resource also at the bottom of the page there on page 2 if you need a nursing home. You can look and find out a lot of information about nursing homes in Massachusetts. What's their ratio of caregivers to patients? Have they had problems? Have they been dinged by the health authorities? Whatever. So if you're looking for a good nursing home, this is a good place to find it. But also these aging care life associates are also people that know the good ones and the bad ones. And it changes a lot because people get bought out, organizations get bought out by one organization that's not so good. Things change very quickly. So it is important that you find a good nursing home if you need one. Let's talk about Massachusetts estate recovery for a moment. Estate recovery is basically this idea that after you die, your estate, if you are on Medicaid for some reason, after you reached age 55, will be able to recover what benefits they may have paid on your behalf. Estate recovery in Massachusetts has been a real source of income for the state. Massachusetts has the highest amount of estate recovery of any per capita of any state in the union. And so that's not a good thing, because that means they're just taking money away from people very quickly. We've had some inroads in being able to reduce the amount of estate recovery for certain things. We've succeeded. They're no longer able to recover for premiums paid for a PACE program or for a program of extra care for elders. You may have heard some of these programs where you pay a certain amount of money, a premium every month, and they cover your medical care, and they cover this, and they cover that. They can no longer collect premiums back for having done that. If you have an estate of less than $25,000, they can't go back against your estate. So at least $25,000 could get to your family or to your kids or whatever. So there's a number of estate recovery benefits that have been expanded, and I listed a few of them in here. Just know that if you're in a situation where your loved one dies, they were on Medicaid, and you're worried about estate recovery because they had some assets when they died and they were on Medicaid, maybe earlier or something happened, there are a lot of waiver programs and things available. So don't just throw it out assuming that Medicaid is going to get their money. They're not necessarily going to get their money. There are some programs available to stop it, so you need to talk to a lawyer about that before that happens. Understand that Medicaid estate recovery is a program where what they'll do is, if your estate is being probated, okay? So if you have a trust, if you've done a living trust and you've put everything into your living trust, right? So you don't own anything technically in your own name. You've got everything in a trust. If you applied for Medicaid, they would make you take it out of that trust. The reason being, they can only collect from your probate estate. So you're not going to be eligible for Medicaid unless everything's in your name. And then once it's in your name, if you die and your assets need to go through your will and through probate, that's where they're going to get their money. And they will send out a notice, and it's just like a claim of any other creditor. They will get their money. So it's important that you understand that there are a lot of options available to try and prevent them from getting all the money, because there are some things that can be done. So it's important to recognize that. And it's changing, and it's getting better. We've actually been able to make some inroads on what they could collect and what they couldn't collect. And we've got some bills pending that will hopefully even recover that a little bit more, and say, hey, they can't recover for this or particular situation. A lot of it involves if you had, for instance, a child who was disabled, or you had a spouse, or you had some other thing. There's a lot of different things that will trigger them not being able to collect, or defer it, which when it's deferred, it means it's probably deferred forever. So it is an important thing to just be aware of the fact that estate recovery is not automatic. There are things we can do to get rid of that. Yeah.
One other, sorry.
Yeah.
I know that Massachusetts has, or no, I guess Medicare has these, what is it called, Medicare savings programs or something, for, if your income is X, certain premiums are paid for.
Yeah,
that kind of
okay,
stuff.
yeah.
So if that's the case, or if one is, I don't know, they have these other acronyms, I can't remember what they are, SLIMB or QUIMB or something. Does the recovery apply to those things too?
It depends on exactly what the program was and what you're getting and what's happening. Again, it doesn't apply to... The problem is that in order to be eligible for Medicaid, you've got to be down to this $2,000 if you're single, right? So the idea being that everything else is gone. So you don't have an IRA, you don't have anything else like that. But again, they can only collect against your probate estate. So if there was something that was not causing you to be ineligible for Medicaid, but also automatically went to the beneficiary, that would avoid estate recovery because it doesn't go through probate. So it's only things that would go through your will. So when somebody dies, remember that there's two piles, right? One pile is probate. Those are the things that are in your own name, bank account, car, whatever you have, that's in your own name when you die, right? And that goes through your will if you have a will. If you don't have a will, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has made one for you. You won't like it, but they've made one. And then basically we have non-probate assets. And those are the assets that automatically go to somebody else. So life insurance, right? You got a beneficiary. That automatically goes to somebody else. If you have an investment account, usually you'll have a beneficiary of your investment account. That'll go to somebody else automatically. IRA, 401k, any kind of qualified funds, those automatically go. But all of those are Medicaid assets, right? That they will make you spend down before you're going to be eligible for Medicaid. So the idea being, you know, if your estate recovery doesn't always necessarily collect much because people haven't always been on Medicaid. But estate recovery, if you have a home and you're down to $2,000 and you go on Medicaid, again, they won't force you to sell the home, but they will put a lien against it. So when you die and your house goes through probate to go to your kids, they're going to collect their chunk before it goes to the kids. So that's the primary place where we see a lot of estate recovery, and that's where people can try and, you know, have some kind of availability of something that would prevent them from being able to accept that. Running out of time here, so let me go quick. Pooled trusts. Pooled trusts in Massachusetts are a way of avoiding, of putting money aside for you that basically does not cause you to be ineligible for Medicaid. So obviously if you gave money to a kid, you can't do that because that runs afoul of the 5-year look-back rule, right? But you can put money into a pooled trust that allows you to have extra money while you're in a nursing home, and that pooled trust will basically prevent any possibility of Medicaid collecting against that money until you die. If you die and there's money still in there, then Medicaid can go at it. But it would give the option to have some money available to you in a nursing home if you wanted to have extra things like a TV or, you know, being able to go out to dinner once in a while or something like that. Pooled trusts last year were ruled that people over 65 couldn't use them. And then we managed to get that turned over. So we won a good case this year that now they can, and the legislature actually passed a law that now people over 65 can take advantage of these pooled trusts just like everybody else can. They're primarily designed for disabled people, so if you have a disabled kid or something like that, they were in a car accident, they got a huge settlement, but they're on Medicaid because that's the only health insurance they can have. Pooled trusts would protect against that, so they could put this money in as set aside for them. But it also works for elderly people that need to have some money set aside for them if they need it. So it's an important option. Yeah.
What about annuities that are payable after death to a child? What happens to an annuity?
Depends on how the annuities are difficult because it depends on when they were set up and how they were set up. So Medicaid could, if that annuity was something that could be cashed in, Medicaid would say you have to cash it in. If it can't be cashed in, for whatever reason, you bought it 20 years ago and it's not something you can cash in, then they might be stuck, they can't do anything about it. So it just depends on whether it's liquid or not. Yeah, whether you can where you can surrender it and get cash for it. So every annuity is very different that way. So it's a tough one to answer individually. So observation status, still a problem. You go into a hospital, you're going to either be admitted to the hospital or you're going to be on observation status. Observation status means that basically they're just looking at you, they haven't really admitted you. There's a big difference in terms of you end up needing a rehab facility after the hospital stay, whether or not Medicare is going to pay for that if you've been on observation status the whole time. They won't pay for it. And now you're paying $17,000 a month for a rehab facility. So if you get hospitalized, make sure that you know whether you're on observation status or you're being admitted. And if you're on observation status and you think you're going to be there for a couple of days, require that they admit you. Demand that they admit you. And if you can't get them to do it, your doctor can do it. Your primary care physician can do it. But make sure you do that because it can make a huge difference in terms of what you might ultimately have to pay.
What is the advantage to the hospital? Do they get paid?
Medicare they don't get paid as much for observation status, and Medicare likes it much better. So if you're admitted, basically Medicare has to pay the hospital at their rates. Observation status means Medicare doesn't have to pay as much. So Medicare likes to have people on observation status, and the hospital has to go along with what the federal government does.
The hospital decision sort of has to.
Oh yeah, but they're not gonna. If they're getting pushed, they're gonna go for the observation status because if they get dinged depending on the kind of people that are admission or observation or whatever, and they don't want to get dinged. Yeah. Social Security, important to know, just like you have powers of attorney, hopefully you'll all have powers of attorney. If you are on Social Security, you can pre-decide who's going to be your Social Security representative, your representative payee, if you can't do it. Now, a power of attorney person typically does not have that ability to become a representative payee because the federal government requires a different kind of power of attorney than the durable power of attorney your lawyer drafted for you.
Oh,
Yeah, pain in the butt. So the idea being, you can go onto your Social Security account and you can name somebody to handle you as representative payee in advance. It's a good idea. I've done it. Everybody should do it, okay? Because that way, if you've named somebody in your power of attorney, you just name the same person as your representative payer for Social Security, and that takes care of a problem they're going to run into if they try and handle your Social Security.
And
So,
what's that term for?
representative payee. And it's called, they call it an advanced representative payee. Advance, yeah. Estate taxes, I just want to make sure everybody understands that. In 2023, Massachusetts raised the exemption amount from $1 million to $2 million. Used to be that you could only basically add more than $1 million you can pay an estate tax. And now it's got to be $2 million to pay an estate tax. Between a husband and a wife, there's no estate tax. There's marital deduction. But if you're single, or if you're the survivor, you're going to pay an estate tax if you're over $2 million. It used to be that if you hit the $1 million, they would drop down to zero and start taxing immediately. They also ended that cliff. So you're no longer being taxed. When you hit 2 million, it basically everything above 2 million get taxed, but not everything below 2 million. So it was a big change, and it's an important change. Know that if you're in that tax bracket, that there are trusts that you can do that are called marital deduction trusts. You can double the exemption, so the kids end up having a $4 million exemption when both of you die, as opposed to a $2 million exemption for the survivor. So there are trusts that can take care of that for you. And the last thing is, we have legislation that passed last year that was great, that is going to, we believe, help with assisted living and memory care units and nursing homes in terms of regulations that help people deal with those organizations. I have a number of clients who had problems with assisted living where they promised them one thing and they got something else, or the assisted living facility was bought out by another organization and they don't deal the same way that this organization does, and stuff like that. And unfortunately, the assisted living world particularly has not had a lot of regulation. They've sort of been Wild West because they were new, and nobody's really caught up with them. But now we have legislation that was passed that's going to require that they be regulated. There's regulations working on it. There are commissions that are trying to figure out what kind of regulations will help. So I think it's going to be a big assistance in the future. I would say probably within the next year, next time I come back, we'll know more about that and what kind of limitations and regulations they may have in place for you. That's it. Thank you.